It's Monday, that means it's time for Q&A. For those of you just joining us, the rules are very simple. All you have to do is leave your questions down below, and hopefully they'll be answered on next week's show. And before we begin, I wanted to give everyone a big thank you. I recently lost a family member, and more importantly, my father lost his father. It was a pretty emotional week for all of us. It kind of came out of nowhere. My grandfather was somebody that we all loved a lot. We were all incredibly close, and losing him was something very hard. And thankfully, he had a wonderful burial. We're still going through the motions. You know, grief is not an easy thing to go through, but things are looking up. And you all coming out and genuinely pouring your hearts even into the comments, I made sure to read each and every one, even if I couldn't respond to them, and they were appreciated by both me and my dad. And just thank you. You all are genuinely incredible people, and I hope you know that. And with that heavy stuff being said, let's kick this week off with a question from Pumpkinhead26, who says, Q&A. Since Microsoft bought Bethesda recently, do you think that the popular tag team of Doomguy and the Master Chief may one day become a reality? All bets are off. It's very strange thinking that Doom is now an intellectual property owned by Microsoft. Well, not yet at least. I don't actually know when the deal officially happens. I've heard some people say it's happening in November. I've heard some people say that the acquisition officially happens next year, but in the future, it is very possible and highly realistic that we will see the Praetor suit in Halo as a unlock for your Spartan customization. It's a very weird thought, and it's actually kind of cool. Something that's kind of interesting. So the talented forger Wyvern Zoo made a Doom-inspired map in Halo 5's Forge, and it couldn't really be put into Halo 5 matchmaking because technically it is a Doom map. You know, you can't advertise it as this week in Halo 5, play on a Doom map. You know, no, you can't really do that. Well, now things are a little bit different. That can realistically happen, and it just kind of, you know, it's crazy to think about. I'm still kind of wrapping my head around it because that announcement of the acquisition of ZeniMax just kind of came out of nowhere. I do see a lot of anxiety around the acquisition because Microsoft doesn't exactly have a great track record when it comes to acquiring studios. Rare was able to turn Sea of Thieves into something beautiful, but Rare is kind of a notorious example of an up-and-coming developer, a group of people very respected in the industry, and then after their Microsoft acquisition, they kind of fell off the map until Sea of Thieves, which had a very poor launch. But Microsoft is a very different company from how it used to be, and I do think it is for the better, to the point that, like, the Xbox... Somebody just contacted me on my phone, did you hear that? To the point that Microsoft has kind of separated Xbox, I guess, creatively, and they're kind of almost their independent subsidiary. And they're kind of doing their own thing, and they're doing really interesting things like Xbox Game Pass, which I'm kind of waiting for the catch, because Xbox Game Pass seems a little bit too good to be true, you know? I'm waiting for the scales to shift into something negative, because right now I'm loving Game Pass, but I'm anxious. The game industry has taught me to never appreciate something awesome because it's going to turn sour, and it's going to turn sour sooner than you expect. So it's interesting. We're going to see what happens. It's still just kind of settling, I guess, the news. But I hope that answered your question. And we're going to move on to David Kalinex, I think I said that right, who says, could we see Master Chief's face again in Halo Infinite? I mean, since Halo 4's legendary ending cutscene, which I personally liked since it showed some subtle details while not totally breaking the imaginative aspect. We haven't seen anything again, but I don't know, I would really like something subtle again, or more explicitly done if done correctly. Okay, so on the debate of Master Chief's face, I think it was a cute joke in Combat Evolved that the camera cuts away before you can see his face after he takes off his helmet. Halo 2 took the joke further by showing him putting on his helmet, but you just conveniently can't see what his face looks like, and I am now like, no, keep going. Don't ever show his face. Keep this gag running as long as it can. I don't think anything of value would be gained by just showing his face, but I think a lot of charm is acquired by not showing his face. It's kind of like Judge Dredd. You never see him take off his helmet. Nah, don't show Chief's face. You know, always conceal it in shadows. If he has his helmet off, have like a cartoon or something. Have a potted plant conveniently in the way. Like, just, I'm a fan of his face being completely mysterious, and I'm not too big a fan of some of the Halo comics being so kind of liberal with their use of just showing off his face, cause I'm like, no, come on, guys, like, don't do that. You know, be smarter about it. Tease us. It's not the biggest thing in the world, honestly, because Halo is just a video game series. You know, the planet isn't gonna explode if Chief takes off his helmet, but I like the charm, the running gag of you just never ever see his face in the games. Halo 4 went a little bit too far by even showing what skin color he was. Like, we all know what Chief looks like based on descriptions in the book, but as far as players are concerned who have never read the books, they have no clue what he looks like. And I think that's a fun running gag to just keep going. But that's just how I feel about it. So this next question is actually really good, and I'm actually excited to answer it. It comes from Perhaps, who says, Q&A, as someone who is interested in making videos, occasionally Halo ones, how do you gather data for your Evolution of series? I don't seek to copy it, but in an H2A video I'm working on, I'm trying to figure out the damage differences of the silenced SMG versus the normal SMG. So, right off the bat, the anxiety of worrying about copying someone, I would not worry about that, to be honest. My channel, I was inspired by people. There were YouTubers that I looked up to, and I hoped to kind of emulate their style. And as I kept going, I started to form my own style. It's okay to start your new channel rooted in an inspiration. That's actually a very good basis. And then over time, you can start to evolve it into something you can truly call your own. And as far as like the evolution of videos, so what I usually do is I'm trying to think, all right, I've got my own opinions about certain weapons and I write down all of them. And then what I'll do is I'll actually seek out people. So Vetoed plays a lot of Halo 5. Shyway plays, well, a lot of every single Halo. He's like a Halo encyclopedia of just very, very specific knowledge that not a lot of people know about Halo. And I ask them to give me, maybe not even a paragraph, but bullet points of, just give me 3 bullet point thoughts on each version of this gun. And I'll try to also go out of my way to ask the professional players of games I'm not even a fan of, kind of like Halo 5, because I don't like Halo 5, and because I don't like it, I don't know a lot about some of the more intrinsic details of its combat systems. Pro players, though, they do, and so I want to get their feedback on how some of these guns perform compared to their old Bungie counterparts. You just want to gather as much data as you can, scour forum posts, read Reddit posts and threads about how people feel. And then from there, the way that you want to structure it is kind of like your traditional essay. You want your intro paragraph introducing the audience to what the video is, and then each subsequent paragraph after that is kind of its own, like, self-contained bubble on a gun. That's the way that I do my evolution of videos, and I hope that that advice helped. Hopefully that answered your question, and we're gonna move on to Austin Redflame7609, who says, Q&A, do you think we could possibly get out of this content drought by simply asking 343 for more content? Will anyone do it? And do you think 343 would hear us? Why or why not? So, I want to say a week and a half ago, a channel called Sean W, a very good channel, by the way. That guy is super entertaining. He's one of my favorite quickly growing Halo YouTubers. He made a video basically calling the community to arms about the content drought. Since Halo Infinite is unfortunately delayed, that means we're gonna go a bit longer without significant Halo stuff. Now, unfortunately, something that is kind of confusing is, what does content mean? Do we mean concept art? Like, is that considered content? Do we want more gameplay? There's a lot of factors. So 343 being a large studio full of hundreds of people, and all of those people answering to shareholders and Xbox executives and stuff who are launching their own console. And a console has a ton of different games going on. So like the games can't kind of intrude on each other. There's a schedule when it comes to marketing and rollouts of the information. So unfortunately, Halo can't kind of do whatever it wants. You know, it's a cog in a big Xbox machine that has to actually be discussed internally and debated and, you know, like pondered about if it'll intrude on X or Y or something. So it all needs to be planned out, and unfortunately 343 can't just start doing weekly uploads of gameplay and multiplayer and all this stuff. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. What we can do, though, as a community is come together and decide, okay, what would keep us satisfied until we can see the multiplayer reveal or more campaign footage? What do we want out of content that maybe is reasonable? Something a little bit lower in scale, like concept art releases or maybe story tidbits. You know? Just consider it, get a debate going, because if 343 does see that the community has rallied around an official thing that we've all decided is, this is the content we want to keep us happy, give it to us 343, then that's a goal that they can work towards internally. So the next question comes from somebody with absolutely no name. I don't think I've ever seen this on YouTube before. This mystery person says, Q&A, did you see the new Armament Blaster for Halo Infinite? It looks like it's a forerunner version of the plasma rifle. Do you think we're going to get those Promethean elites seen in Halo 5's concept art? Or just a reminder that Covenant technology took inspiration from the Forerunners? Okay, yeah, the concept art, if you guys don't know, that he's referring to actually, it was some of these pitches that were done of like, what if we took an elite and put a lot of Promethean stuff on it? There was like an elite with Promethean legs and arms covered in kind of like floaty bits. One had like a sniper rifle. They were interesting pitches, but ultimately I think that those are kind of holdovers from Halo 5, like that Reclaimer era aesthetic that we're clearly moving away from. I don't think we're ever going to actually properly see those in-game, and in my personal opinion, I'm happy, because a lot of those concept pieces, like the zombie robot Didact that was like kind of partially rebuilt, like, sure, those look cool, but that's kind of, at least in my opinion, more of the stuff that I really don't like about Halo 4 and 5's aesthetic, and I hope kind of stays in the past. I'm more on board with what Halo Infinite is doing. That looks more familiar to me as a Halo fan. The Promethean-y Forerunner Elite, it's just, it makes my head hurt looking at it. I'm just like, no, please, no more. Now, as far as the Armament Blaster goes, there's a lot of theories that it might be a Forerunner device. I don't believe it's a Forerunner device, and I can explain why. The Forerunner stuff is usually a lot more angular, a lot more blocky. I'm kind of like disregarding Halo 5. Halo 5 was covered in spinny, circular Forerunner, like smooth grooves and stuff like that. Like, Forerunner stuff is traditionally very blocky, very angular, very kind of like, it almost looks like the inside of a motherboard, if that makes any sense. Like, it's very kind of like technical, and that looked a little bit too smooth. It almost reminded me of the arc reactor in the first Iron Man movie, but if you shrunk that thing and turned it into a gun. I'm just kind of going off of like looking at Combat Evolved, looking at Halo 2 Anniversary, Halo 3 and stuff, and I'm like, that thing doesn't really look like a Forerunner device, but I don't know, I'm not sure what it is. I hope it's not like Human or Covenant or Banished, I guess, because that definitely doesn't fit those aesthetics. It's a strange looking gun. For all we know, it could just be kind of like a, look, it's a toy and we put Master Chief on the packaging. That means it's a Halo toy. Buy it? Question mark? The next question comes from Tristan Wilson, who says, Q&A, how do you feel about the enemy character design shown in Halo Infinite? They don't look like the Banished to me. I love the character models, like the Elite and the Jackal, but there is so much blue instead of the Banished red. Also, wouldn't it be cool to have a red Banished plasma grenade? So to answer that last question, yes, that is a great idea, Tristan. I have never considered that it would be super dope if the Banished plasma grenades were actually red. But as far as the enemy designs, you are right. They don't really look like the Banished. They look more like the Covenant. I mean, I say that. There are obviously Banished flourishes in there, like the Brutes. Those look a little bit closer to the Banished, but they're not all sporting that red color scheme. The reason for that is because in an RTS setting, it's important to tell which units are yours. So they're all going to kind of have that uniform color, like every Banished is red. With a first-person shooter, you do need to be able to differentiate the units that you're fighting against, like as far as like their rank goes. So like the yellow elites, got it. That one probably has a sword. The blue elites, got it. That one is a miner. This isn't to say, though, that maybe it could be taken a little bit further to make them look a little bit more Banished-y. Like, have your blue color for the elite miners, but, you know, put in some red accents there. We gotta know that they're Banished. The Banished have a very different aesthetic to the Covenant, and 343 is very sensitive right now to art style debates. They want to make the community happy. They want to remind us what universe we're in. It's the Halo universe. And in the Halo Infinite reveal, maybe they did go a little bit too far in some places, to the point that they are redesigning some of their own creations and original creations like the Banished to remind us a little bit more of the Covenant. And while it's cool, it's in fact very cool seeing Brutes sporting high definition Halo 3 armor, I do want to see some Banished stuff, you know? It can't all be Covenant. We're fighting the Banished, and we love the Banished, and I'd like to see a little bit more of them. And the final question comes from Shane Robert Tate, who says, Q&A, what do you think the future is for Infinite? And how would the story expansions be rolled out for the next 10 years? Would the story become slower, or would it become stretchy? Also, what are your thoughts on if Halo had an Avengers Endgame kind of ending, where Red Team, Blue Team, Fire Team Osiris, Spirit of Fire, Arbiter, every single one coming together to defeat Atriox and the Flood, being the ultimate antagonists in the Halo universe? So, I don't usually answer questions about how Halo will end, because I think I don't want Halo to end, you know? I'm not even thinking about that. I'm currently in the moment. I feel like if we fixate too much on how Halo will end, we won't enjoy what's happening right now in Halo, if that makes any sense. Like, we don't want to get too fixated on, like, the second we see a trailer for Halo Infinite, we're like, oh, how do you think it's gonna end in 10 years? Like, no, what about the trailer? What about what's happening now? So as far as story expansions go, your concern about it becoming stretchy and kind of slow is actually a concern that I do have, because Halo hasn't been too great, I feel, the last about half a decade, with satisfyingly wrapping up a narrative. I think Halo 5 did not earn its cliffhanger ending because the story itself just was not satisfying enough. Halo Wars 2, I absolutely do not think it earned its cliffhanger ending because the base story wasn't satisfying. Something that does actually make me feel pretty confident in Halo Infinite's story is the fact that we're not just straight up fighting Atriox from the very beginning. This character, Escharum, he seems to be the main antagonist, and that's like, okay, they're saving Atriox. That means we're gonna have an interesting story with this character, Escharum, and the Chief, and this pilot character and stuff. I don't think it's just gonna end on a cliffhanger, since they aren't throwing everything at us from the very beginning. All right, I wanna see how this goes. But, you know, hopefully I gave you some thoughts on that. And with that, guys, we will wrap up today's Q&A. I hope that you all enjoyed. Leave your questions down below, and guys, I'll see you on the next video. This was a lot of fun.